My parents stood in front of 200 guests at my sister's wedding and called me the family disappointment. They said I would never amount to anything. They laughed about how I was the one child they wished had turned out differently. And everyone at that wedding joined in on the laughter. But then the venue manager walked up to my parents, cleared his throat, and said he needed my signature to continue the event. The look on my mother's face when she realized the truth was something I will never forget as long as I live. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to understand how I ended up in that ballroom, standing in a corner, like a ghost nobody wanted to see. I need you to understand how my own family spent 28 years making me feel invisible, worthless, and small. Because when you hear the full story, you will understand why that moment meant everything to me. If you are new to Reddit Family Tales, welcome to the family. We share real stories from real people who have been through situations that seem almost unbelievable. If you enjoy stories about family drama, unexpected revenge, and moments where the underdog finally gets their moment, then you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button right now and tap the like button because it really helps the channel grow. Trust me, you do not want to miss what happens in this story. Now let me take you back to where it all started. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My name is Melissa, and I was the middle child in a family of 3 kids. My older sister Rachel was the golden child from the moment she was born. She was beautiful. She was charming. She was everything my parents ever wanted in a daughter. My younger brother Tyler was the baby of the family, the prince who could do no wrong. And then there was me, Melissa, the quiet one, the weird one, the one who never quite fit in. From a very young age, I knew something was different about how my parents treated me compared to my siblings. When Rachel brought home a B on her report card, my parents celebrated and took her out for ice cream. When I brought home straight A's, my mother would glance at the paper and say something like, "That is nice. Now go clean your room." When Tyler broke a neighbor's window playing baseball, my father laughed it off and paid for the damage without a single word of punishment. When I accidentally spilled juice on the carpet, I was grounded for a week, and my mother told me I was careless and thoughtless. I spent my entire childhood trying to figure out what I had done wrong. I tried being more like Rachel, wearing similar clothes and joining similar activities. My parents said I was copying her and being annoying. I tried being more outgoing like Tyler. My parents said I was being too loud and needed to tone it down. No matter what I did, I could never win. I could never be enough. By the time I reached high school, I had stopped trying. I focused on my studies instead. I buried myself in books and academics because that was the one thing nobody could take away from me. My grades were excellent. My teachers loved me. I was quiet, respectful, and hardworking. But at home, none of that mattered. Rachel was the cheerleading captain. She was homecoming queen. She dated the quarterback of the football team. My parents went to every single one of her games, every single event, and took thousands of photos. When I won the state science fair competition, my parents forgot to come. My mother said she had a hair appointment that she could not reschedule. My father said he thought it was the following week. I stood on that stage alone, holding my trophy, looking out at the crowd of families and seeing nothing but empty seats where mine should have been. That was the moment I realized the truth. It was not about what I did or did not do. My parents simply did not love me the way they loved my siblings. And no amount of achievement would ever change that. After high school, I got a full scholarship to a university in California. It was across the country from my family, and honestly, that was one of the main reasons I chose it. I needed distance. I needed space. I needed to build a life where I was not constantly reminded of how little I mattered. My parents barely reacted when I told them about the scholarship. My mother said California was far away and asked who was going to help her with the housework. My father said something about how I always had to be different and do things my own way. Rachel rolled her eyes and said I was running away because I could not handle being around successful people. Tyler was playing video games and did not even look up. I moved to California with 2 suitcases and $300 in my savings account. I had no family support, no safety net, and no one to call if things went wrong. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. College was hard. I worked 2 jobs while maintaining my grades. I lived in a tiny apartment with 3 roommates. I ate ramen noodles more times than I could count, but I was happy. I was building something that was entirely my own. And nobody could tell me I was not good enough because I was proving every single day that I was. I graduated at the top of my class with a degree in business and hospitality management. I got a job at a small boutique hotel in Los Angeles, starting at the very bottom as a front desk clerk. I worked my way up slowly but surely. I learned everything I could about the industry. I stayed late, came in early, and volunteered for every project and opportunity that came my way. By the time I was 25, I was an assistant manager. By 26, I was managing my own property. And by 28, something incredible happened that changed my life forever. A wealthy investor named Richard Chin approached me with an opportunity. He had seen my work and was impressed by how I had transformed an underperforming property into one of the highest-rated hotels in the area. He wanted to partner with me to open a new luxury venue, a combination of a boutique hotel and an event space specifically designed for high-end weddings and celebrations. I was terrified. This was a massive opportunity, and the idea of becoming a part owner of such a venture seemed almost too good to be true. But I had spent my entire life being told I was not good enough, and I was tired of letting fear hold me back. I said yes. We spent 2 years building that venue from the ground up. I was involved in every detail, from the architecture and interior design to the staff training and menu development. I poured my heart and soul into that place. It was my baby, my dream, my proof to myself that I was capable of amazing things. The venue opened to incredible success. We were booked solid within the first 3 months. Celebrities held their weddings there. Magazines featured our property. We won awards. And I kept my involvement relatively quiet. The venue was called the Rosewood Estate, and while industry insiders knew my name, the general public and certainly my family had no idea I was connected to it. I had not spoken to my family much during those years. Maybe a phone call on Christmas or a brief text on birthdays. They never asked about my life, and I stopped volunteering information. As far as they knew, I was still working as a hotel clerk somewhere in California, barely getting by. I never corrected them. I never felt the need to prove anything to people who had already decided I was worthless. Then, about 6 months before the wedding, my mother called me. It was the longest conversation we had in years, and the reason became clear very quickly. Rachel was getting married. She was marrying a man named Jonathan who worked in finance and came from a wealthy family. This was going to be the wedding of the century, my mother said. Everyone who was anyone would be there. And as much as it pained her to say it, I was expected to attend. I almost laughed at the way she phrased it. As much as it pained her. Like my presence was a burden she had to tolerate rather than a joy she wanted to celebrate. But I agreed to come. Part of me was curious to see my family again after so long. Part of me, honestly, just wanted to see how far they would go in their mistreatment of me. What I did not tell my mother was that the wedding was being held at the Rosewood Estate. My venue. The moment she mentioned the location, I felt my heart skip a beat. Of all the places in California, they had chosen my property. They had no idea. Nobody had told them. And, in that moment, I made a decision. I was not going to tell them either. I wanted to see what would happen. The months leading up to the wedding were interesting. My mother would occasionally call to complain about the venue's policies or the prices. She would say things like, "These people are so demanding, and the coordinator is being difficult about our requests." She never suspected that the difficult coordinator was reporting directly to me, that every complaint she made eventually landed on my desk. I stayed out of the planning process, officially. My staff knew not to mention my name to the family. When I did visit the property, I made sure to do it when the family was not there for appointments. It was like being a ghost in my own business, watching everything unfold from the shadows. Rachel never called me during the planning process. Not once. She did not ask if I wanted to be a bridesmaid. She did not ask for my input on anything. The only communication I received was a formal wedding invitation in the mail, addressed to Ms. Melissa Parker and guest. Like I was a distant acquaintance rather than her sister. The day of the wedding arrived, and I drove to the Rosewood Estate feeling a strange mixture of emotions. Excitement. Nervousness. Anger. Sadness. Hope that maybe things had changed. Fear that they never would. I arrived early, before most of the guests. My staff greeted me warmly, and I did a final walkthrough of the venue to make sure everything was perfect. The flowers were stunning. The lighting was exactly right. Every detail was in place. Despite everything my family had put me through, I wanted Rachel's wedding to be beautiful. That was just who I was. I changed into my outfit in my private office. I had chosen a simple but elegant deep blue dress, nothing too flashy, nothing that would draw attention. I did not want to outshine the bride. I just wanted to blend in and observe. When I walked into the venue as a guest, nobody recognized me as the owner. The staff I passed gave me subtle nods but maintained their professionalism. I found a seat near the back of the ceremony space, away from the front rows where family was supposed to sit. Nobody had assigned me a seat up there. Nobody had even asked where I would be sitting. The ceremony was beautiful. Rachel looked stunning in her white gown, and Jonathan seemed genuinely happy. My parents sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Tyler was a groomsman, looking handsome in his tuxedo. I watched from the back, feeling like an outsider at my own sister's wedding. After the ceremony, everyone moved to the reception hall for cocktail hour. I tried to make small talk with some distant relatives, but most of them either did not recognize me or were too absorbed in their own conversations to pay attention. I grabbed a glass of champagne and stood near the edge of the room, watching the festivities. That was when my mother spotted me. She walked over with a glass of wine in her hand and a look on her face that I knew all too well. It was the look she always gave me when she was about to say something hurtful. "Melissa," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You actually came. I was not sure you would, considering how antisocial you always are." I smiled politely. "Of course I came, Mom. It is Rachel's wedding." She looked me up and down, assessing my dress. "Is that what you are wearing? Could you not afford something nicer? I suppose on a hotel clerk's salary, this is the best you can do." I felt the familiar sting of her words, but kept my composure. "I think I look fine." She shrugged. "If you say so. Just try not to embarrass us in front of Jonathan's family. They are very prestigious, you know. We do not need them knowing about our family disappointment." And there it was. The word she loved to use. Disappointment. Even at her golden child's wedding, she could not resist putting me down. The reception continued, and things only got worse. My father found me at my table and made a comment about how I was probably jealous of Rachel's success. Tyler made a joke about how I was the only one in the family who had not figured out life yet. Rachel herself barely acknowledged my existence, giving me a brief hug and a distracted thank you for coming before running off to talk to more important guests. But the worst moment came during the speeches. After the maid of honor and best man gave their toasts, my father stood up with a microphone. He was slightly tipsy, his cheeks flushed from the wine. He started talking about how proud he was of Rachel, how she had always been his shining star, his greatest accomplishment as a father. And then he said something that made my blood run cold. "You know," he said with a chuckle, looking out at the crowd, "not all of our children turned out this well. We have 3 kids, but really Rachel and Tyler are the ones we are proud of. Our middle child, Melissa, well, let us just say some people are meant for greatness, and some people are meant to be cautionary tales." The crowd laughed. Actually laughed. 200 people, including Jonathan's prestigious family, laughing at me like I was the punchline to a joke I never agreed to be part of. My mother stood up beside my father and added her own comment. "We always said Melissa would probably end up living in our basement until she is 40. Working as a hotel clerk at her age, can you imagine? Some children just do not have that spark." More laughter. I sat at my table in the back, my face burning with humiliation. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to run out of that room and never look back. But something inside me told me to stay. Something told me to wait. The speeches continued, and I sat there in silence, my hands trembling slightly. I thought about all the years of being put down. All the times I was made to feel worthless. All the achievements they never acknowledged. And I thought about the venue around me, the business I had built with my own 2 hands. The Rosewood estate, filled with my vision, my hard work, my success. The reception was about halfway through when there was a small commotion near the entrance of the hall. I looked up and saw Marcus, my venue manager, walking in with a concerned look on his face. He was looking around the room, searching for someone. And then his eyes landed on me. I knew immediately something was wrong. Marcus never came to events unless there was a serious issue. He walked toward me, and I stood up to meet him halfway. "What is happening?" I asked quietly. "We have a problem," he said in a low voice. The family's credit card was declined for the final payment. We have been trying to reach them for the past hour, but they are not answering their phones. The catering company is threatening to stop service, and the band is asking about their payment. I need authorization to continue the event under the backup protocol. I closed my eyes for a moment, processing the information. The backup protocol meant that I, as the owner, would personally guarantee the payment until the issue was resolved. It was something we had set up for VIP events, where we wanted to avoid any disruption. Before I could respond, my mother appeared beside us. She had noticed the conversation and looked irritated. "What is going on here?" she demanded. "Why are the staff interrupting my daughter's wedding?" Marcus looked at her, then at me, clearly unsure of how to proceed. I gave him a small nod. "Ma'am," he said politely, "we have been trying to reach you regarding a payment issue. The credit card on file has been declined." My mother's face went pale. "That is impossible," she hissed. "Check it again." "We have checked it multiple times," Marcus said. "I am afraid we need to resolve this issue immediately, or we will have to halt the event." My mother looked around frantically. She grabbed my father's arm and pulled him over. "The credit card is not working," she whispered urgently. "Do something." My father patted his pockets and pulled out his wallet, fumbling through his cards. "I will give them another one," he said. But Marcus shook his head. "Sir, we require authorization from the property owner to accept an alternative payment method at this stage. Otherwise, we will need to pause the event until the original payment clears." By now, other guests were starting to notice the commotion. Rachel hurried over, her face flushed with embarrassment. "What is happening?" she demanded. "Why is everyone standing around?" My mother tried to explain, her voice rising in panic. "Something is wrong with the payment. These people are going to ruin your wedding." Rachel turned to Marcus, her eyes blazing. "This is unacceptable. Do you know how much we are paying for this venue? Go get your manager. Get the owner. Someone needs to fix this right now." Marcus remained calm. He looked directly at me and said, in a voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "I believe the owner can authorize the resolution right now. Miss Parker, if you could sign the authorization form, we can proceed without any further interruption." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother stared at Marcus, then at me, confusion written all over her face. "What did you just say?" Marcus pulled out a tablet with the authorization form. "Ms. Melissa Parker, co-owner of the Rosewood Estate. If you could sign here, please." My father actually laughed. "That is ridiculous. Melissa does not own anything. She works as a hotel clerk." I took the tablet from Marcus. I looked at my father, then at my mother, then at Rachel. 3 faces staring at me with disbelief and confusion. "Actually," I said calmly, "I am the co-owner of this venue. I have been for the past 3 years." I signed the authorization form with a steady hand and handed the tablet back to Marcus. He nodded professionally. "Thank you, Ms. Parker. Everything will proceed as planned." The silence stretched on. My mother's mouth was opening and closing like a fish. My father looked like he had been slapped. Rachel's face was transitioning from confusion to something that looked like fury. "That is impossible," my mother finally sputtered. "You cannot afford this. This place is one of the most exclusive venues in California. How could you possibly own it?" I smiled softly. "I worked hard, Mom. I started at the bottom and built my way up. 3 years ago, I partnered with an investor to open this venue. It has been doing very well." My father stepped forward, his face reddening. "Why did you not tell us? Why would you keep something like this a secret?" I looked at him steadily. "When was the last time you asked about my life, Dad? When was the last time any of you showed interest in what I was doing? You never called. You never visited. You just assumed I was a failure because that was easier than admitting you never gave me a chance. The guests nearby were watching now, their champagne glasses forgotten as they witnessed the drama unfolding. Jonathan's parents were standing near Rachel, their expressions a mixture of shock and fascination. Rachel finally found her voice. "You knew this was your venue? You knew we were having my wedding here? And you did not say anything?" "I knew," I admitted. "When Mom mentioned the location, I recognized it immediately. I chose not to say anything because I wanted to see if anything had changed. I wanted to see if maybe after all these years, you would treat me differently. But you did not. Even tonight, at your wedding, you laughed when Dad called me a cautionary tale. You let Mom say I would end up in their basement. You have never once seen me as your equal, Rachel. None of you have." My mother tried to regain control of the situation. "This is completely inappropriate," she hissed. "You are ruining your sister's wedding with this dramatic revelation." I shook my head.
"No, Mom."
"I saved Rachel's wedding. If I had not been here, the event would have stopped. The caterers would have left. The band would have packed up. 200 guests would have witnessed the payment failure and the chaos that followed. I authorized the continuation because despite everything you have put me through, I would never want to ruin Rachel's day. That is the difference between us." My mother had no response. My father was staring at the ground, his earlier confidence completely gone. Rachel looked like she was on the verge of tears, though whether from anger or something else, I could not tell. Jonathan walked over, putting a hand on Rachel's shoulder. He looked at me with an expression that was surprisingly respectful. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for handling this so gracefully." I nodded at him. "Congratulations on your marriage. I hope you two are very happy together." I walked away from my family and returned to my table in the back. The reception continued, though the atmosphere had shifted noticeably. People were whispering. Guests kept glancing in my direction. My family avoided me completely for the rest of the night. But I was okay with that. For the first time in my life, I did not need their validation. I had shown them who I really was, not through anger or revenge, but simply by being present in my own success. I had not shouted. I had not made a scene. I had simply signed a piece of paper and let the truth speak for itself. The wedding ended around midnight. As guests began to leave, several of Jonathan's family members approached me to introduce themselves. They were curious about the venue, about my story, about how I had built such an impressive business at my age. I spoke with them politely, exchanging business cards and promising to connect later. My parents tried to approach me once more before they left. My mother looked uncomfortable, her earlier confidence completely deflated. "Melissa," she started, "we should talk about this." I shook my head.
"Not tonight, Mom."
"Tonight is about Rachel. We can talk later if you actually want to have a real conversation. But I will not pretend anymore. I will not let you treat me like I am worthless when I know exactly what I am worth." She did not know what to say to that. My father mumbled something about calling me next week, and they walked away together, looking smaller than I had ever seen them. I stayed at the venue until all the guests had left. Marcus found me on the terrace, looking out at the gardens lit up with fairy lights. "That was quite an evening," he said with a small smile. I laughed softly. "You could say that. How are you feeling?" I thought about it for a moment. Honestly, I feel free. Like I have been carrying this weight my whole life, and I finally set it down. He nodded. "You handled it with a lot of grace. I have seen family drama blow up events before, but you kept everything calm." "I did not want to ruin the wedding," I said. "Even after everything, I did not want that." "That is what makes you different," he said. "Most people in your position would have let it all crash and burn. You chose kindness when you had every right to choose revenge." We stood there in comfortable silence for a while, watching the cleanup crew work in the distance. And I realized that this was my life now. This beautiful venue, this successful business, this person I had become despite everything my family had put me through. In the weeks after the wedding, a lot changed. Jonathan reached out to me directly, apologizing for the way his new in-laws had treated me. He said he had no idea about the family dynamics before the wedding, and he was genuinely impressed by what I had accomplished. We actually became friendly, and he even referred some of his business contacts to the venue for their events. Rachel sent me a text about 2 weeks later. It was short and awkward, something about how she was processing everything and maybe we could talk sometime. I told her I was open to it whenever she was ready. She has not followed up yet, but I am not holding my breath. My parents took longer to reach out. When they finally called, about a month after the wedding, the conversation was strange. They tried to act like nothing had happened at first, making small talk about the weather and local news. But eventually my mother brought up the elephant in the room.
We did not know, she said.
About your success. If we had known, we would have treated you differently. And that, right there, is the problem, Mom, I replied. You should not need to know about my success to treat me with basic respect and love. I should not have had to own a luxury venue for you to stop calling me a disappointment. You should have loved me just for being your daughter. She went quiet at that. My father tried to change the subject, but I did not let him. We had the most honest conversation we had ever had as a family. I told them about all the times they had hurt me, all the moments they had made me feel small and worthless. They tried to defend themselves at first, but eventually they just listened. I do not know if our relationship will ever be fully repaired. Some wounds run too deep. But at least now they know the truth. They know that their invisible daughter was never actually invisible. She was just building something they were too blind to see. Okay, so before I wrap up this story, I want to take a moment to speak directly to you. If you have ever been the black sheep of your family, if you have ever been made to feel like you were not good enough, I want you to know something. Your worth is not determined by how others see you. It is determined by how you see yourself and what you do with your life. I spent so many years trying to earn my family's love and approval. But the truth is, some people will never give you what you deserve, no matter how much you accomplish. And that is okay, because your life is not about proving them wrong. It is about proving yourself right. It is about building something beautiful from the pieces they tried to break. Now, if you made it all the way to the end of this story, thank you so much for watching. Your support means everything to me and to this channel. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below telling me about your own experience with family dynamics. Have you ever had a moment where you finally stood up for yourself? Have you ever surprised people who underestimated you? I want to hear your stories. Also, make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Every like helps the channel grow and allows me to keep bringing you these incredible stories. And if you have not subscribed to Reddit Family Tales yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Remember, you are worthy of love and respect, no matter what anyone else says. Keep building your dreams, keep believing in yourself, and never let anyone make you feel small. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.